Hello, my name is Billy Dunn. It's February 12, 2018. I will be presenting a exposition of the axial and appendicular skeleton. And what we have here is the anterior view, and deep in the eye socket you have the ethmoid, the sphenoid, the lacrimal bones inside. The nasal it's pretty obvious. The zygomatic is also part of the face of the anterior. The vomer, which is inside the nose, the mandible, and the maxilla, which is very obvious, like your chin and like above your lip, that bone there. And if you look from the posterior view, you have the parietal and the occipital, which is right here. The temporal, not as easy to see from the posterior view, and the mandible you can see a little bit. And next I will be showing the lateral view of the parietal bone, the occipital, the frontal. The nasal you can see a little bit, but the ethmoid, the lacrimal, it's not as obvious. You can't see it that much from the lateral view because it's more in the nasal cavity. And you can see the maxilla and the mandible here and here from the lateral view. From the inferior view, it's a little bit internal. If you take the cranium off, then you can see very little. But if you can see inside with the lines, the ethmoid, the frontal, occipital, parietal, sphenoid, and the temporal, and the occipital also right here. Okay, next I'll be discussing the vertebral column. And in the vertebral column, we'll go with the posterior view. You have the cervical vertebrae, which is the upper portion here, the atlas, and the axis are all up in the upper region. The thoracic vertebrae is like these 12 bones here, as well as the lumbar vertebrae, which is the lower portion. Included in the vertebral column, you also have the sacrum, the coccyx, which is like the tailbone. And from the anterior view, you have the thoracic cage, which I'm going to discuss is the manubrium of the sternum and the body of the sternum. Also, you have the true ribs and the false ribs, the floating ribs. That's part of the thoracic cage. And discussing the pectoral girdle and upper limbs, that would be this upper portion here. From the posterior view, you can see the clavicle, actually that's the clavicle. This would be the scapula. You also have the arms, the humerus, the radius, and ulna. That's part of the pectoral girdle and upper limbs. And then I'll be discussing the hands and wrists. The hands and wrists, I'm going to put my little skeleton guy here. The hands and wrists, you have the capitate, trapezium, pisiform, scaphoid, hamate, lunate, triquetrum, trapezoid. Those are all the flat part of the hand up in here. And then you have the sesamoid, phalange, metacarpal. Those are all part of the fingers. Now the pelvic girdle and the lower limbs, they consist of this area here, the ilium, the ischium, that part here, the pubic, the femur, the patella, which is like your kneecap, and your leg, which is your fibula. And lastly, I'll be discussing the ankle and the foot. Ankle and the foot, you have the calcaneus, which is like your heel bone, and your cuneiform, the lateral cuneiform, the intermediate cuneiform, the medial. Those are all those bones right here. The navicular is the upper ankle of the big toe. The cuboid, actually the medial cuneiform, which be like where some people suffer with a bunion. The talus, which is your ankle, your big toe, your metatarsal, which is like the middle part of your toes. So that will conclude my exposition of the axial and appendicular of the skeleton. Again, this is Billy Dunn. Thank you.